Mabuhay and welcome. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tez Milan. I am a Filipino-American creative who is on a mission to do a deep dive into my lost Philippine heritage, to learn as much as I possibly can and to share that with you. Today, as you can see, I am here in beautiful Colorado. We are about to go on a hike up to the Maroon Bells. Because it is July 4th, I wanted to talk about the reason why the Philippines has 2 Independence Days. That's right, I'm not sure if you knew that Philippines has 2 Independence Days. But yes, it does indeed, and I'm going to tell you exactly the reason why. And let's go on this hike. It's so pretty. There's Tig. I'm hiking with Tig today. We are hiking up to Crater Lake, which is about, I think, 10,000 feet up. Is that what you say it was, Tig?
10,200.
It's supposed to be really incredible. The weather is perfect right now. Not too cool, not too hot, just right. Woo! Yeah. So the first thing that we'll want to clarify is that there are 2 Independence Days in the Philippines. Let's find out why. So let's start at the very beginning, when Spain colonized the Philippines, way back in 1565 by San Luis de Legazpi. He came, Miguel Luis de Legazpi, I think that's what his name was. All right, let's go.
After the arrival of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, Cebu City was declared the capital of the Spanish East Indies. The capital city was then later relocated to Manila in 1571. The late 1800s saw a strengthening of identity around what it meant to be Filipino, leading to a growing desire for independence by the middle class and Filipino intellectuals. Reform by the Filipinos was met with resistance by the Spaniards. Then, Jose Rizal, a national hero, was executed after being accused of rebellion. At that point, many who were loyal to Spain started to shift their loyalty back to the Philippines.
With tensions mounting between the Filipinos and Spaniards, Andres Bonifacio created in 1892 the Katipunan.
It's actually pronounced Katipunan,
which is a secret military society specifically to revolutionize the Philippines and gain independence from the Spaniards.
Internal disputes and eventual election led to Andres Bonifacio losing leadership to Emilio Aguinaldo. The Spanish uncovered the Katipunan's plans of rebellion. This caused them to act in August 1896, marking the start of the Philippine Revolution. In December 1897, Emilio Aguinaldo negotiated a treaty with the Spanish, where he was promised compensation and reform if he and the leaders of the revolution were exiled to Hong Kong.
In April of 1898, the Spanish and American War started in Cuba, which led to the eventual involvement of the U.S. in the Philippine Revolution and the Philippine-American War.
May 12, 1898, Aguinaldo returned from Hong Kong to rally revolutionaries to aid the United States in the fight against Spain.
So after a number of bloody battles between the Spaniards and the Filipinos with the help of the U.S., Emilio Aguinaldo declared independence from Spain on June 12, 1898. And that, my friends, is Philippine Independence Day number 1.
A mock battle in Manila was then staged between Spain and the USA. Not knowing the battle was a total hoax, a number of Filipinos died fighting for their country. After the made-up battle, Spain surrendered the Philippines to the United States. On August 14, 1898, the U.S. military government of the Philippine Islands was established. Malolos, the first constitutional government ever created in Asia, was established in the Philippines in September. The government assembly consisted of Philippine revolutionists.
On December 10th, 1898, unbeknownst to Aguinaldo and the rest of the Philippine nation, the United States signed the Treaty of Paris together with Spain, which basically gave the Philippine Islands to the United States for a whopping $20 million.
The first Philippine government was created with Emilio Aguinaldo as president on January 21, 1899. After realizing what had happened with the Treaty of Paris, tensions between the Philippines and the U.S. grew. The Philippine-American War, initially called the Philippine Insurrection, started on February 4, 1899, when a Filipino was shot by an American soldier. March 23, 1899, Aguinaldo was captured by the U.S. He decided to take an oath of allegiance to the United States, calling an end to the rebellion. But in typical Filipino spirit, the rebellion forces refused to back down and continued fighting for their country. Many atrocities ensued on the Philippine Islands.
On July 2, 1902, President Theodore Roosevelt declared the Philippine-American War over and the U.S. as the victors.
Under Roosevelt, an American civil government was instated known as the Philippine Assembly. The Jones Act of 1916, also known as the Philippine Autonomy Act, contained the first formal and official declaration of the United States government's commitment to eventually grant independence to the Philippines. However, independence would only be granted under the condition that the Philippine nation prove they were able to govern themselves. The 1934 Tydings-McDuffie Act, also known as the Philippine Independence Act, created the Commonwealth of the Philippines in 1935. This government body would lead the country through a 10-year transitory period to independence. In 1935, Manuel Quezon was elected president of the Philippines. He would successfully lead the country to increasing self-governance and establish a process towards full independence.
While we're snacking, I'm going to tell you about how Philippine independence was originally scheduled for July 4th, 1944, but because of the Japanese occupation during World War II, it got delayed by 2 years. It's so blown out today, guys. Sorry. Thanks for putting up with that. Let me try to fix that for you.
During World War II, the Japanese took U.S. troops in the Philippines by surprise. For his safety, General MacArthur was sent to Australia, but he made a promise to the Filipino people that he would return. Aguinaldo and his government assembly were exiled to Washington, D.C. Japanese troops occupied the Philippines for 3 years, starting in 1941. Filipinos started to use guerrilla tactics to fight the Japanese. The Japanese, wanting Philippine loyalty, declared a so-called independence in 1943. But Filipinos saw right through this scheme. The guerrilla movement remained loyal to the Philippine Commonwealth and the U.S. government.
Now that we're done snacking, I'm going to tell you about how General MacArthur came back to the Philippines, October of 1944, to fight against the Japanese and try to get them out of the Philippines. But it wasn't until August of 1945, with the dropping of the 2 atomic bombs, that they finally left the Philippines.
At the end of the Second World War, the Philippines needed rehabilitation badly. The country became very dependent on the U.S. at this point. President Osmeña, who took over when President Quezon died of tuberculosis, negotiated aid and assistance with the United States in order to save the Philippine Islands. President Truman signed the Rescission law to lower the amount owed to Filipino veterans for helping the United States during the Second World War. Basically, this law denied most Filipino veterans the benefits that were due them, voiding their service in the U.S. Armed Forces.
Finally, on July 4th, 1946, the Philippines declared independence from the United States of America. And that, my friends, is Philippine Independence Day number 2. In 1962, Philippine President Macapagal declared June 12th officially Philippine Independence Day to commemorate the 1898 Philippine Proclamation. In 1964, just 2 years later, he made July 4th Republic Day? How did he make that? Ha! I was right. In 1964, President Macapagal made July 4th Republic Day.
Under President Ferdinand Marcos, July 4th was changed to Philippine-American Friendship Day and relegated to a working holiday during martial law. President Corazon Aquino did away with Philippine-American Friendship Day altogether in 1987. President Fidel Ramos then restored July 4th to Republic Day in 1996 on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the Philippines declaring independence from the United States in 1946.
So that, my friends, is why the Philippines has 2 Independence Days. Count them, 1, 2 Independence Days. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Fil-Am. Goodbye.